Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Great thoughts on what's going to happen tomorrow night.
Thank you.
And just some observations. That it was interesting on Game 6 for the Lightning versus the Canadians. I was at Double Dogs after playing a hockey game, and ironically, right in behind me was sitting Ryan Johansson and James Neal with their lovely wives. And it was, I don't know how we got into a conversation with them, but it really struck me, one, just how big James Neal is compared to Ryan Johansson. Ryan Johansson is as big as he is. And just what good shape Ryan was in and how hard he's been working on strength and all sorts of interesting stuff. And then I went to do a little bit of reading on, what the projected, draft boards will look like for the Kraken tomorrow night. And by and large, there's a lot of speculation that that there's a deal already been struck, that we might pick up a bit of the contract and that Johansson will go there, which I thought is extremely interesting given the fact that, they're after a number one center, that there are a lot of forwards and a lot of defensemen, but the number one center is something we definitely want to build around. It really dawned on me that losing Johansson, I would, if I had my druthers, I would really like Duchesne to hit the road and try something new. But Johansson, I think, is misjudged a lot, and here's the reason why. He's a big dude, and he takes some criticism for not always digging in. Where as a big guy, a big skater, he's actually moving pretty fast and doing a lot without actually showing it. So, like the juxtapose, you have a guy like Arvidsson who's skating like crazy and shows the effort. It's hard to judge the effort. I think I won't really question the fact that they left him out there and that he's gone and that we need that $8 million to rebuild. But he would have an impact, and I think he would ultimately get us what we want, right? And that is if the Kraken do pick him, and if we are able to somehow unload Duchesne, what you're going to find is we won't be that competitive. We won't make the playoffs, and we will get in the lottery. And that's where you want to be. Otherwise, you're searching around for has-been forwards, which has not been a good story for Poyle.
Hey, thanks for the call.
Your thoughts on it.
Absolutely. Thanks for the call, Rob. We appreciate it. To his point about Johansson, and, we hear this all the time with him, the effort part of this, right? I don't know that I could have put it better than Rob just put it there. I mean, have there been instances of maybe him not skating as hard as he should have? Sure. I think if you look closely enough, you'll find that with generally every player around the league. Johansson, he moves pretty well. And to his point, sometimes it doesn't look like it because he's a bigger guy. But Johansson moves pretty well. He's fine. And you and I have talked about this, Joe. I think it's the same circumstance with Johansson and Duchesne. They both got to be better. But I do think they're both a little bit different. Like Johansson, I think at least there's a baseline of what he's going to be in the playoffs and he's going to play well. There's got to be more in the regular season, and that's a problem with him. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's not. And maybe they do lose him in the expansion draft. But I still think the situations themselves are a little bit different between Johansson and Duchesne.
I think they're quite different. And I could almost go as far as saying, like, if it were to work out where they lost Johansson here, it could end up being a bad thing for them. I mean, yes, you clear that $8 million, but I mean, I think to Rob's point, if you're constantly out there, okay, which talented forward is in a bad spot that maybe we could find this guy or that guy and cobble it together versus going all the way to the point where you can get one of these high draft. I mean, I know that's also a real dicey thing. I mean, you don't have McDavid most years. You don't have some of these guys who have been foundational pieces when these franchises went to the bottom, but still higher picks should mean something. And if you're constantly making the playoffs, that's great. That's a good comment on what you are as an organization. But eventually then you come to this point and you don't have the assets in your organization that other teams do.
Let's go back to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Ryan from Hermitage, who wants to weigh in. Ryan, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Morning, guys. I still believe in the expansion draft. They've got to find a way to move Duchesne over Johansson, not only because of the effort that Johansson does put in, but also the fact of the matter is, if Duchesne is going to be this kind of Duchesne through the rest of his contract, he's got a no movement clause kicking in, and if they don't move him now, they're going to be stuck with that, and it's his choice. And if he doesn't want to leave Nashville, the only thing they're going to do is buy him out. My only other thing is, with the rumors of Shea maybe retiring, would it be smart for maybe the Preds to work a deal with Montreal to try to acquire Shea Weber again and just keep him on long-term IR so they don't get hit with that cap hit?
Hey, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. We'll start with the Shea Weber thing. I don't know. First off, I don't know that Montreal would do that. What are you giving up to get Shea Weber? I don't know. I mean, maybe it's probably worth looking into if you're David Poile and the Predators. I would put the chances of that happening pretty low. Like Shea Weber, and we talked about it last week, it doesn't look good for him right now. He's not just going to give up. Like, he's going to try to come back and play. Like, I don't really – right now, and I could be wrong. You know, I'm not sitting here talking to Shea Weber on a daily basis. But right now, I don't get the sense that retirement is really on his mind. I get the sense that maybe we sit out a year – you see where you're at, and then maybe you readjust after that. But I don't think that Shea Weber is going to just like rush into this retirement decision. We talked to Arpon Basu last week from The Athletic, who covers Montreal. People have doubted Shea Weber before. He's found a way to get back on the ice. I think he's going to exhaust every option to get back on the ice. So I would hold off on that. I think Shea Weber, the number one thing on his mind right now is, all right, how can I get through this, get back, and start playing again? So that would be my thought on Shea Weber.
It's also like, I don't know, but the idea that you could do that, what Ryan just suggested, is just so ridiculous.
But I think you can.
It's just what a league.
Yeah. I've double-checked that, but I think you can. So, I mean, but if Weber retired
and avoid all the cap recapture.
Right. But if Weber retired then, even if he's on your team, I think you'd still have the cap recapture.
You're still on the hook.
So, but basically it boils down to whether or not Shea Weber's going to retire. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I'd be stunned if he did right now.
Right. So
it's going to be a while.
When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Predators. I got more of your thoughts to get to. We'll do that coming up at 7:45. Jim Diamond, though, going to join us coming up next. Has covered the Predators for a long time. Does work for the Associated Press. You can find Jim Diamond a whole lot of places. We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Konezovic, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, talking Predators. And to help us do that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in the great Jim Diamond, member of the Professional Hockey Writers Association, covers the Predators for the AP. He's covered the Predators for a long time. Jim, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
Robert, I'm great, but thanks for calling me old this early in the morning. I appreciate
Well, that's what I'm here for. I'm just
venerable,
making sure we keep people in check here on the show.
Yeah, no, I'm checked. 7:30, 7:31. I'm checked.
There we go.
Good job.
Jim, I want to get your thoughts. We got a lot to get to with you. Let's start with the Ryan Ellis trade. What were your thoughts on the trade? Were you surprised that the Predators and David Poile moved Ryan Ellis, and what did you think of the return that they got for the trade of Ryan Ellis to the Philadelphia Flyers?
I wasn't super surprised. I do think, or hoping on their part, that means that they sort of have an agreement with Ekholm to stay after this year because he's unrestricted. Because I think losing both of them would leave their defense core really thin. Wasn't super impressed by the return, but with younger guys, you want to see how they develop. And I know. Hopefully the Cody Glass situation is just something where a change of scenery can buoy him a little bit because he hasn't done a whole lot to date, but still a young guy, still a very high draft pick. So still to be determined, but all in all, not super shocked. But I guess a lot is still to be determined on that.
How about the expansion draft situation, Jim? One, Tanner Jeannot being protected, but then also the fact that, no surprise, I think to any of us, Duchesne and Johansson aren't. What do you think the possibility is that David Poile can pull something off and get one of them selected?
Yeah, I was a tad surprised at the Jeannot protection, but the more I thought about it, when you protect Oxbow, Saskatchewan protects you.
That's a good point.
So, I think it's a good, I loved what I saw, when he played, no question about it. Just, not sure he would have been someone that jumped out to Seattle. And I think it's going to be I think it's going to be an impossible sell to get able to take Duchesne. I think Johansson, there's a possibility to it, but those are some pretty hefty contracts. And I think a lot of this plays into Seattle's overall philosophy, which, we do not know as far as contracts they're looking to take from other teams, whether it's Carey Price or Tarasenko, some of the large numbers out there. They obviously have the cap room, but they do want to build something, reasonably quickly, I would think, and kind of hamstringing yourself on a couple of those contracts may not be the best way to go about it.
Jim, so we talked to David Poile on Saturday after the Ellis trade was made. He said in his opening statement he did not feel like the team was in a rebuild, later used the term competitive rebuild to describe what the Predators are doing. And we know with the expansion draft tomorrow and free agency, contract extensions, all these things that are still yet to happen this offseason, there's still more of this picture that needs to be played out. But as of now, as you view Victor Arvidsson being moved, Ryan Ellis being traded, the expansion draft coming up, where do you think the Predators are? Are they a team that needs to go into a rebuild, in your opinion? How would you describe the state of this Predators team and Predators franchise as they head through the rest of this 2021 offseason?
To use a very simple word, they're just kind of meh. I mean, they're just kind of kind of floating. I think it's difficult with the contract we talked about. If you still have Johansson, if you still have, pardon me. I'm getting all choked up here talking about.
It's an emotional time, we know.
Inching closer to where their skills are starting to decline. So I don't blame David Poile for saying that they're not in a rebuild, but they're kind of stuck in the middle where they're okay, but they're definitely not one of the top teams in the West, definitely not one of the top teams in the league, and I don't see them getting there quickly unless there's some significant shakeup. Significant more shakeup to come than what we've already seen with, like you said, Arvidsson and Ellis going out. But I just think they're kind of floating. I don't see them as good. They're okay, but they're not horrible. So I don't know if that's the greatest place to be in, though. When it all comes down to when you're trying to figure out what you're doing.
So as you look out there at possibilities, which, like you said, the possibilities are much different based on the expansion draft. But is there anything out there, anyone out there, you look at, Jim, and say, okay, if they could get this guy, maybe that takes them out of floating meh?
Is Connor McDavid an option?
Yeah, no, I think that, and then of course David Poyle's going to try and swing a trade for Jack Eichel because A, he's American, and B, he played college hockey. But I just don't think that that's a possibility. And I think prior to last year's kind of free agent flurry, where they brought in a bunch of guys, we thought we were going to see more of the younger guys in the system, get some opportunities, and that may be the point where they're at to kind of see. I don't want to say throw this season away, but just kind of give some guys a season to see where they are and what they have before they kind of make a grander decision. At that press conference Saturday, I kind of fished around to David Poyle to see if cap space meant he was going to go shopping this year, or if he was kind of saving it for hopefully re-signing Ekholm and Forsberg, and he didn't really give me an answer, which I didn't think he would, but. So cap space is extremely valuable, and I don't know if you go out and spend like a drunken sailor the second it hits your bank account. But I think this may just be a season to kind of see what they have internally, and then kind of look forward to the next couple of years. But you got to be careful with, like I said, with Forsberg and Ekholm as unrestricted after this season. Do they want to hang around for a long-term rebuild? And that's just a difficult question that we would probably have to ask them.
Jim Diamond on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And to that point, I agree with you. I think in order for David Poyle to trade Ellis, probably some pretty high confidence that Ekholm is going to be able to be signed to an extension. Otherwise, probably hold off a bit before you trade Ryan Ellis. Jim, the Forsberg decision is interesting to me because he's 26 years old. I think we would all recognize Philip Forsberg is a very good player. I don't know that Philip Forsberg is worth a ton more than he's making right now. He's making $6 million a year. I think he's going to get a raise. I don't know that I would pay Philip Forsberg $8 million a year or $8.5 million a year. He's been injured in each of the past 4 seasons. Everybody keeps waiting for Philip Forsberg to have, the 35-goal season or the 40-goal season and be a point-per-game player, and it's just not happened yet. So I think it's interesting from the Predators' perspective. I think it's also interesting from his perspective. Like you said, they've traded Victor Arvidsson. We saw Forsberg's reaction to that. He was not very happy about Arvidsson being traded. I can't imagine he's overly happy with Ryan Ellis being traded either. I think there's an actual decision, an interesting decision for Philip Forsberg to make here. Does he want to stick around for what could be a rough couple of years if things don't really change dramatically this offseason? Does he view this team as close? Does he view this team as going the wrong way? I think there's a lot of really interesting things to sift through with Philip Forsberg. And my question to you is, if you're the Predators, how long do you give this to kind of play out and to get him signed to a contract, as you said, with 1 year remaining on his deal, before you have to entertain the idea of maybe moving Philip Forsberg this season?
Yeah, and it comes down to that number. I think you mentioned $6 million. If you're Philip Forsberg, do you take a dime less than Ryan Johansson is making? I say no, just based on principle. And the same thing with Duchesne. So, I think he's going to get $8 million, whether it's from the Predators or someone else. But I don't think you can play around with this super long if you're the Predators, just based on the fact that salary cap is at such a premium around the league, and there's not a whole lot of cap dollars to go around. So if you're going to move him, this year on his current contract, it's possible. But I think once free agency hits and the salary cap dollars dry up, you're looking at later in the season if you're going to move him toward the trade deadline. And last few years, the returns at the trade deadline haven't been spectacular. So. I know there's a lot of press on Seth Jones in Columbus, saying he's not going to sign an extension, so he's out there. So I think it'll be kind of an interesting situation to watch. But I would think if there's something going to happen, it would happen sooner rather than later. Just because you don't want to leave yourself in the position of losing him for nothing or next to nothing in a trade deadline deal type situation.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you talk about $8 million for Forsberg. It sounds like an amazing deal relative to other contracts currently on the team. But so, Jim, we've talked a little bit about UC Saros, obviously a big part of this discussion or any hockey team discussion. What do you think about him, what we saw this last year, where he's going?
Well, I mean, they've obviously made the decision that he's the one long term. I don't expect them to bring in a big name or high dollar backup. And David Boyle, said it as such that they're looking for a backup goalie here in free agency. So he was really good. He's the reason that the team got out of their funks, from the early season, and just the way the whole season played out. It's kind of hard to blame anyone for a slow start. It was such a weird situation, but without Saros, they're nowhere near missing the playoffs, I don't think. I don't think that was a fluke. It wasn't a 1 or 2 week stretch where he was good. Like, he was good for months. And so, I think he's their guy. I think, an experienced backup would do him well, much like they had with Pekka. But he's going to be the one.
Jim Diamond has covered the Predators as long as anyone, does a great job for the Associated Press as well, member of the Professional Hockey Writers Association. Jim, appreciate you, brother, for taking time to come on with us this morning.
Oh, anytime. Miss you guys.
Absolutely. Miss you as well.
Jim.
It's going to be an interesting offseason coming up for the rest of this offseason with the Nashville Predators. Jim Diamond does great work covering the Nashville Predators. When we come back, we'll react a little bit to what Jim had to say there. Got more of your thoughts to get to as well on the Nashville Predators on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Konezovic, Eliza Campbell here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, discussing the Nashville Predators. Thanks to Jim Diamond for joining us in the last segment. Great information on the Predators. The expansion draft coming up tomorrow. Right now, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Chris texting in, is it possible that the Predators may have protected a player or two to keep Seattle from selecting them, but will then use them in a package to take one of the higher $8 million forwards, like a package that would send Fabro and a pick to Seattle for them agreeing to take Duchesne and his contract? It is possible that can happen.
It's possible.
I was thinking about this as Jim was talking. You know, we've talked about the changes that have been made, the direction of the team, how potentially, especially if you go younger, there's always the potential there where it could be rough for a couple years and you could miss the playoffs. Is that worse than hanging on to Duchesne and Johansson and not being willing to pay a premium price to get them out of here? Which situation is worse? Going through a couple of years, hopefully coming out on the other side of it. You don't know that you will. Hopefully coming out on the other side of it, or not being willing to pay that extra premium and having Duchesne and Johansson on the books for the next 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to answer without knowing exactly what the premium is.
So let's say
there's a limit.
Let's say you give up Dante Fabro. I think a lot of Predators fans would be like, yeah, you give up Dante Fabro right now. He's a 22-year-old defenseman. You selected him in the first round. I still think there's a lot of ability there. I don't know that Dante Fabro is ever going to become Roman Josi or anything like that, but I still think he can be a good player. Are you willing to give up on a first-round pick that you invested in 2016 to get rid of a Matt Duchesne or a Ryan Johansson?
I mean, it's, look, I mean, we've talked about that as one of the names, but you got to think real hard about that. Obviously, this past season was discouraging on the Fabro front, but again, his age and other things you've seen from him, the guy can play. I mean, he has a potential to be a very good defenseman in the league. I don't know. I mean, the answer to that is what you really think he's going to become. If you just kept Samuel Girard, we keep going back to, then you wouldn't have the issue. I mean, obviously Carrier's emergence kind of changes things, but
well, the other thing is the right side, right? Like Ryan Ellis isn't there anymore. Again, they obviously feel very confident in Alex Carrier. I'm confident in Alex Carrier too. I'm not willing to just completely sell out on Alex Carrier yet. I need to see it for longer. If you get rid of Fabro there, that right side's looking pretty thin, especially if Carrier can't handle it at that top level. I don't know what you do at that point. So that's something you got to keep in mind if you're David Poole on the Predators.
I mean, based on things they've said, which I know sometimes can be exaggerated, you have to take it all with some level of skepticism. But based on things they've said, I feel like they feel like Fabro is an important part of the future.
Agreed.
Now, again, that was also in the context of being asked, why the heck isn't he playing?
Right.
So some of that may be, let's give the young guy a boost of confidence. Hey, if you want to be a real cynic, maybe they want to deal him, and they, you want other teams to feel like he's good, right? But I get the feeling Fabro, I don't know if he'd be untouchable, but I think that'd be a lot to ask. Yeah, I mean, the more I think about it, I'm just going to be really surprised if after Wednesday they don't have both of those guys, Duchesne and Johansson, back on their team. I'm skeptical. It just feels like Seattle is, although they're not showing their hand, they have better options for getting to that cap floor.
Yeah.
And they don't look to me like a team that's thinking they can do what Vegas did.
No.
And I mean, even if they did think that, did they think that Duchesne is the answer?
Well, you can think that way all you want. What are the chances that you can do what Vegas did, right? When you get to the Cup final, you've been in the conference final 3 times in 4 years.
Or even just like be a playoff team in year one. I mean, I think even that, it is possible.
It's possible in that division, for sure.
It is. It's possible in that division. And again, you look at what's available to them. Well, it could be pretty good. But compare some of those other players to what the Preds are trying to get him to take.
Yeah.
Tough sell.
We talked a lot yesterday about Colton Sissons and Tanner Jeannot and, of course, Yakov Trenin as well. The possibility of being selected in the expansion draft. Obviously, Jeannot is protected. One guy that a lot of people think is most likely to be selected, Calle Yarncroke. 1 year remaining on his deal and almost led the Predators in scoring a year ago. We could be 1 day away from the extinction of Jodavion Rexrode here in Nashville.
It's too bad.
It'd be a really sad day. Keith is upset on our text line.
Half in Cleveland, half in Seattle.
Yeah.
But, they'll always be part of the sports universe. We can still talk about them. Yeah, that'd be my guess. You think they're going to take Sissons?
I do. I think they're going to – well, look, that's probably who I'd take. But we'll see. We'll see what happens on that front. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Brian in Portland texting in. I think the Ryan Ellis trade was less to do about the trust in Alex Carrier and Dante Fabro and more to do with Ryan Ellis's health and age. I would want to go ahead and get that contract off the books now before I couldn't in the coming years. And I'm sure that's part of it.
Sure.
I'm sure it's the whole factor, right? It's the whole picture. But, yeah, I don't think there's any question that if you're David Poile and the Predators, there had to at least be some concern about Ryan Ellis in the back half of that contract. Either not being the same player or not really being even close to the same player based on the injuries that he's had.
How's this being received in Philadelphia, by the way? I really haven't.
The Cup Parade is being planned in Philadelphia.
Really? So there's just all kinds of excitement about this.
They are very happy. Very happy.
Well, good. You want everyone to be happy.
Yes. Yes, you do.
Everyone wins the trade.
Frank texting in, can you guys actually translate what Poile's vision is? After protecting Jeannot, I'm not seeing an actual vision. Competitive rebuild doesn't qualify as a vision. What do you think David Poile's vision is right now?
Well, it's a fair question.
Yeah.
I mean, David Poile's not going to tell us all the moves he's going to make before he makes them. So I'm withholding some judgment until we see the whole picture. We see what happens in the expansion draft. We see what, if anything, Poile does with the extra cap space. If he can get Granlund back. I said it back at the trading deadline. That, to me, is one of the essential parts of not trading him at the deadline is that you end up getting him back. He did help you get to the playoffs. You don't get to the playoffs without him.
Right.
But now are you getting him back? There's just so much that we don't know. But, I mean, I think Jim Diamond put it well. They're sort of in that floating sort of mediocrity to pretty good kind of team. And it's hard to shake that up. They are shaking it up on the front end in terms of unloading some of these contracts, and I think both players dealt are good players to deal. The return's underwhelming, but again, what if Cody Glass comes in next year and it all comes together for him? There's just no matter what, it's going to come down to a vision of, I really hope this, and this happens, or else we're screwed. Yeah. I mean, there's going to be no certainty that this team is a strong contending team going into next year. There's no way. It won't even be close to that.
Our buddy Bob on Twitter says, I don't think there's any way that they don't take Johansson. I think there's a way. I think that way is the $8 million price tag per year. I think Johansson, I think Jim put it well. I don't give, unless there's some serious, additions along with it, I don't think there's much of a chance Seattle's taking Duchesne.
Agree.
I think they're going to think about Johansson. I think they consider Johansson. I still wouldn't say it's very likely that they take Johansson.
Yeah, I certainly disagree with Bob on that there's you don't think there's any way. Again, look at all the players available to them. There are some other high-priced choices that they might like better. I will say, though, again, like if it goes the way of Johansson, I mean, that's where, to me, next year's team really could suffer for it. Now, you open up the money, so now you have different possibilities. I'm not sure unloading Johansson is the right thing for the Preds. I'm very stuck in the middle on that. I'm with Duchesne. I mean, I think if you can do it, you celebrate it.
By the way, Myers coming in from Philadelphia. The jersey numbers put out yesterday. Cody Glass wearing number 8. Myers wearing number 6, which used to belong to former Predators captain Shea Weber. What did you think of that yesterday with the reaction to Myers wearing number 6?
Well, first of all, my gosh, Jared. Jared's reaction was he lost it about this.
Yeah.
I think Jared said "wow" like 20 times on that segment. I don't see why it's a big deal. You tell me, why is it a big deal? But you thought
I thought they were going to retire Shea Weber's jersey.
Yeah, so there you go. I honestly had dismissed that as a possibility. When they traded him, he wasn't there for the greatest 2 seasons in franchise history. I just feel like he comes up just a little bit short of that. We know Pecorine's 35 is going up.
Yeah.
Roman Yossi has one of Norris.
Roman Yossi, when he's done playing, will have his jersey retired.
I've dismissed the idea that number 6 would go up there. But again, this is where I could be wrong. I mean, I don't have a grasp of how he's
I read
viewed.
that yesterday as it's not going up there.
But you thought before that it was?
Yeah.
Huh.
I was kind of floored that he's wearing number 6, I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's the world's biggest deal because I very much subscribe to the you better be really good for a long time to have your jersey retired. I think Shea Weber is kind of right on the edge. I think Shea Weber was their best player for a long time. I think Shea Weber, for a few seasons, single-handedly drug this team into the playoffs. So he was very important. I mean, honestly, I think you can make an argument he's right up there with Pecorine in terms of importance to this team and importance to this franchise. He's probably a notch below it, and I think a lot of why he is a notch below it is what you just mentioned. 2 best years we've ever seen, where Pecorine largely being a big part of that. But I just think, as Joe Rexrode punches the microphone, I just think Shea Weber was incredibly important. I thought there was a pretty good chance they'd retire his number. But I'll say, a couple of people said yesterday, well, when Shea's done playing, they can retire it. What this signaled to me yesterday was they're not retiring that number. I don't think they would let anybody else wear it if they were. Now, that's just the way I read it.
Yeah. Now, that has happened.
It's happened, but
other teams have had a jersey in circulation, and they just take it out when they retire the number.
Right, but generally speaking, you say, hey, why don't you pick a number? It's also like he wasn't number 6 in Philadelphia. He was number 5.
So do you think that this represents the decision ultimately? Okay, he's not quite going to be retired. You can put it back into circulation.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Well, that's a question worth asking somebody over there.
Yeah. We'll have to get to the bottom of that.
I think that by the time Yossi's done,
he's going to be retired.
I think he'll be clearly ahead of Weber on the pecking order.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you can make an argument that maybe he already is. But Shea Weber was very, very important to this team. I'm not saying that he absolutely 100% should have his jersey retired. I was just leaning towards they would retire his number. But I read that yesterday as apparently not. Myers is going to be wearing it. Tell you what, that's a lot to live up to, number 6 in that jersey. So hopefully Myers is up for it.
That's true. That's a little bit extra pressure. Johnny, friend of the show, tweets in that he thinks that Weber will be in a Preds Ring of Honor. They don't have a Ring of Honor, do they?
I don't think so.
But
maybe they make one.
The Ring of Honor is sort of the
step below.
Is that the step below?
I guess.
Jersey retired.
Yeah,
you could do that. He'd be in that.
Yeah, well, I would hope so.
Be a lot of people who could be in that.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, we will get into the Tennessee Titans. Lots of rankings coming out from ESPN.com lately. Some have given the Titans individually a lot of respect. As a team, not so much. We'll get into that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesale Link Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5. The Game, hour number 3 of Robby and Rexrode. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. I got some breaking news from Adam Schefter in the NFL. Quote, this offseason, the Packers offered Aaron Rodgers a 2-year contract extension that would have tied him to Green Bay for 5 more seasons and made him the highest-paid quarterback and player in football. Rodgers declined the offer, proof that it's not about the money. So Aaron Rodgers apparently offered a gigantic contract extension this offseason by Green Bay and declined from the Green Bay Packers. I got to tell you, Joe, that makes my prediction of him being the starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers in Week 1 makes me feel pretty bad about it.
Jordan Love time?
Oh, boy. Maybe so.
There's some excitement.
Is there?
Well, maybe not.
Where's that at?
Well, I saw Tyler Dunn wrote a piece the other day. Tyler Dunn does a great job covering the NFL. He actually, where the heck was he? I think he was at Bleacher Report before he started his own site called Go Long, and he wrote why Jordan Love, it's time. He's ready. People are missing the story, which is that Jordan Love is ready. Maybe you're in for a beautiful awakening this fall.
Could be. Hey, if it has to happen, I guess it has to happen at that point. We'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Speaking of the National Football League, Joe, we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of weeks reacting to some lists that ESPN.com has thrown out there, whether it was the top 10 quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, whatever position you want to throw out there. And they have come out with another list, and the exercise from ESPN.com this time around is a panel of experts coming out with power rankings for the next 3 years. So projecting all 32 teams for the next 3 seasons in the National Football League. Jeremy Fowler, Lewis Riddick, Seth Walder, and Field Yates are a part of this. They rate each team's quarterback situation, remaining roster after the quarterback, drafting ability, front office, and coaching staff using this scale. So those are really the criteria that they're kind of throwing out there to determine the power rankings for the next 3 years in the NFL. At number 1, I don't think it's anybody's surprise, the Kansas City Chiefs. At number 2, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the next 3 years, which it's interesting. Is Brady going to be there for 3 years?
He's just going to live forever.
He's just going to be there the whole time. At number 3, the Baltimore Ravens at number 3 on the power rankings for the next 3 years. Buffalo coming in at number 4. Cleveland at 5. So a lot of AFC teams so far on this list.
Yeah, and that's like young quarterback stuff.
Right.
Okay, I get that.
San Francisco at 6. L.A. at 7. Los Angeles Rams at 7. So the Matthew Stafford love continues with him going to L.A.
And I guess is that the Trey Lance love too?
I guess so. The New England Patriots at number 8. The New England Patriots at number 8. At number 9,
Mac Jones, baby.
The Indianapolis Colts on this list. At number 10, Seattle. Number 11, the LA Chargers. At number 12, the New Orleans Saints. At number 13, the Green Bay Packers. And finally, at number 14 on this list, the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee in 14th on this list, behind teams like the Bills and the Browns and the Chargers and the Ravens and the Colts and the Patriots in their own conference in the AFC. So let's start with this. What do you make of the Titans being at number 14 on the power rankings for the next 3 years in this projection? And what do you make of teams like the Patriots and the Colts being in front of the Titans on this list?
Well, I'm confused. I'm almost more confused than anything by 2 teams in the NFC when you read that. One, your Green Bay Packers.
Yep.
Like, to me, they should either be way higher or way lower, shouldn't they? Is that like hedging the bets of maybe he'll be there or not?
Could be. Because like if Rodgers is there for the next 3 years,
they should be higher.
They should be in the top 5.
If he's not, then we just talked about Jordan Love. We'll see, but I wouldn't have him top half of the league. And then the Saints, that's a vote of confidence for who?
Maybe Sean Payton.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
all
and
I think of.
so that would be if that's the answer, then that's part of the answer with the Patriots too, right? That's Belichick's going to figure it out, and I mean, I think Mac Jones can be a good quarterback. I don't have a ton of confidence that like Cam Newton's going to have this huge turnaround season, but we'll see. But that's got to be so. Some of that is that. So that's got to be because the Colts Titans is the obvious thing you wonder about, right?
Well, and to that point, they kind of list by category here, and they've got quarterback ranking for New England at 22. They've got coach number 1.
Yeah, because like with the Colts, I assume that's just largely again good roster, good young team, a lot of good young players, but largely a vote of confidence for Ballard, Reich,
right?
Because I'm sorry, but like Carson Wentz, going to be one of the most fascinating players in the league this year, but he's not a quarterback that inspires top 10 over the next 3 years confidence. I think you're way too optimistic about Carson Wentz if you think so.
Well, and on the Titans part of this, I mean the categories again are the quarterback, the overall roster minus the quarterback, coaching, drafting, and the front office. They're kind of right in the middle on all this. Quarterback, they're at number 11. That's the highest ranking they have. 15 for coaching, 16 for overall roster, 17 for draft, and 13 for front office. So they're kind of right there in the middle on most of these rankings, with quarterback being right outside the top 10 at number 11.
I mean, I don't think it's outrageously. Look, there's just so much on the defensive side of the ball that we've talked today a lot about the Preds and the what's the vision? Where's it going? A lot of it is just like A, B, C, and D need to break our way. Well, It's the same thing with the Titans defense, right? And some of the, again, John Robinson, overall picture, very good. Recent picture with some things, hasn't been good. And certainly there's a lot of gambles on injured players that keep happening and just a lot of hope invested in certain players on this defense. And if it doesn't go the right way, you could be bad on defense for the foreseeable future.
Any guesses at who the bottom 3 teams are on this list for the next 3 years? So the bottom 3 teams. Any guesses?
Well, I would hope that the Honolulu Blue and Silver would have a strong spot there because they should always be there.
They're at number 31.
Nice.
You have any idea who number 30 and number 32 would be?
Well, I would probably assume that the Houston Texans would be one of them.
They are at number 32. Dead last in the NFL, the Houston Texans.
Yeah, I mean, right now, how can you be excited about what they have going on? Let's see. Who else would be –
I don't know that you'll get this one.
All right, give me a chance.
Okay.
I feel like I can figure this out. The worst outlook – for the next 3 years, the NFL, the Lions and the Texans
are at the bottom.
Are obvious.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that this is not an obvious?
I don't think so.
Because obviously you think about teams that have been crap, like the Jets.
Right.
You could look at the whole freaking NFC East and not be too excited. How about let me guess? Carolina Panthers.
It is the Philadelphia Eagles at number 30.
Okay.
I don't know that I'd have them at 30, but I guess, the salary cap probably part of that too, so I guess you put that in front office. But, yeah, number 30.
Cap stress, aging, and look, I share skepticism on Hurts. I'd love to see it work out. I don't know. I don't know if he's quite good enough.
My wife just texted me and goes, "Who are the Honolulu Blue and Silver?"
Oh, baby, restore the roar.
The mighty Detroit Lions getting it done out there.
Look.
How many playoff wins since 1957?
1. It was 38-6 over Aikman, Emmett, and the Cowboys. That was pretty sweet. It was a great day in my young life, but 1. Yeah, Honolulu Blue. That's hey, the uniforms are sweet.
Yeah,
the Honolulu Blue is sweet.
It is. That's about where that stops.
Yeah, and then you got a couple great players who unfortunately had to play for the Lions.
We'll continue this conversation when we come back. What do you make of the Titans' outlook for the next 3 years? Where would you stack it up against the rest of the National Football League? We'll get to that coming up here in just a few minutes. Make sure this Wednesday you're tuning in. It's your chance to participate in the Nashville SC Pick to Click, brought to you by Camarena Tequila. Our listeners are killing it in that competition so far. If you guess correctly which player scores a goal in the game this Wednesday night, you win a prize pack and a 4-pack of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game. Participate this Wednesday morning at 9:45. We'll be right back. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Keith texting in earlier about my warning that maybe the Jodavion Rexcroke era could be coming to an end tomorrow if Callie Yarncroke gets selected in the expansion draft. Holy Jadavion, Robby. Warner, brother. I was not emotionally ready to deal with that possibility this morning. Keith, I apologize. Joe, are you prepared to deal with the possibility of potentially life without Callie Yarncroke?
It'd be tough, but you know what, Keith? You've had other wonderful creations. You can come up with more.
That's right. Just maybe a little bit of rebooting going on.
Yeah, there's you could put Rex into just about anything.
You can.
As I've found out through my life.
Joe Rule.
To my detriment.
Many things can happen. Right. Never know.
What was the one that
Joe Restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah, come on. Joe Restaurant, man. Joe Rule and Joe Restaurant.
That's the third time you've muted yourself today. What's
right
going
in the middle of talking.
That's a new one, Joe.
That's a no. You're just really getting after it today.
Got me all flustered, Keith, talking about this Joe Davion Rexrode possibility. It's tough.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben texting in. We're talking the list that ESPN.com has put out there of the outlook for all 32 NFL teams over the next 3 years. The Titans coming in at number 14 on the list. At number 9, the Indianapolis Colts. And Ben on the text line says, it makes sense for the Colts to be in the top 10 on this list. They have one of the best GMs, head coaches, and a very talented young roster. I think it's a better chance that Wentz succeeds in Indy rather than failing. Situation and coaching mean so much to the success or failure of a quarterback in the NFL. Tennessee gets a bit of a knock due to Robinson's botched 2020 draft and some of his questionable free agent acquisitions. Also, New England shouldn't be in the top 10 with how much they've struggled in the drafting department. So, Ben, some faith in the Indianapolis Colts with Carson Wentz coming in for the top 10.
Yeah, I get all that. I do. I mean, I'm not surprised people look at it that way. I still think it's a little bit too much faith in Wentz.
I think it's a little optimistic.
It's a little bit optimistic on the Wentz front. But I expect him to benefit from this change of scenery. I just don't know how much. And that's the most important thing. And that is, again, when you compare those two franchises where there's a little bit too much optimism with them, and there's a little bit too little optimism on the Titans quarterbacking front.
The New York Jets have moved all the way up to number 20 on this list. So from number 2 overall in the draft to number 20 on the outlook list here.
So you just get rid of Gase and all is well?
Apparently so.
Corey Davis.
Dallas Cowboys right in the middle of the league at number 16. Miami at 15. I thought Miami might be a little higher based on their roster. So they got a lot of young guys that look like they could be pretty good.
They do, but that's a quarterback uncertainty ranking, right?
Quarterback number 21.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, I still think Tua could be very good. Some stuff late last season, a little bit, but it's so early. It's amazing how quickly judgment is passed on these quarterbacks now.
Yeah, it is. And all the Deshaun Watson rumors, and that's the other part of this. Like, what happens with Deshaun Watson if he is able to play? Is there still no chance it's going to be for Houston at this point? I would think so. Like, where is he going to end up if all these legal issues that he has clears up? Like, at some point, those are going to be addressed, and we're going to know one way or the other what's happening with Deshaun Watson. Where does he land? And, like, if he went to a team like Miami, do they go from, 15 on this list into the top 5? I think there's a good chance they probably would.
Oh, sure. Well, where's Denver? If your guy goes to Denver.
Well, Denver at the moment is at 24 on the list.
Boy, that's
If they got their quarterback ranking is 32, so it's dead last.
Fair.
You could move to 1 or 2 with the quarterback ranking with Rodgers coming in there.
And again, I like a lot of the other parts of their team.
Their overall roster minus the quarterback is at number 12 in the league, which, for a team that didn't make the playoffs last year, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Some injuries, obviously. Yeah. Seeing some of those guys coming back on defense, but yeah, man. That's got to be the place, right? Is that the place? Is that where he's going to be? If he's not in Green Bay.
I think that's where he'll be if it's not in Green Bay. Now, again, the Packers have to make the decision to trade him, which I think at some point, like if he's not going to play, like you've got to do it at some point, right? You can't just sit there and wait on Aaron Rodgers to like one day change his mind in 2023. Like you've got to trade him, I would think. And that's not good news if they offered him a contract extension to make him the highest paid player in the league. And he said, no thanks. Appreciate it.
Can you just fire the GM? Fire your GM.
I thought this would be a pretty simple solution. Fire the GM. I don't think he's very happy with Mark Murphy either, and I don't know what you do about that.
Yes, it's extortion, but still, it's the NFL.
Isn't it kind of worth it?
Yeah, it's the
he goes out and wins the Super Bowl next
in the
year.
League.
Yeah. Jacksonville Jaguars at number 21 on the list. I was interested to see where their coaching was ranked. With Urban Meyer coming in, take a guess at where the coaching is ranked.
Who did these?
Jeremy Fowler, Field Yates, Lewis Riddick, and I forget the other name. Let me go back to the top.
Okay, so it's good. It's good analysis. I would hope Urban's coaching is not ranked any higher than like 26.
The other name was Seth Walder. And again, by coaching, I wonder if they mean head. All it says is coaching. So I wonder if they mean head coaching or just coaching in general.
Well,
but it's got to be head coaching, right?
Yeah. I mean, are they analyzing the various special teams? Okay, it's a little high, but at least it's not stupid.
Well, I know it's not like top 10, but how do you know like Urban Meyer's the 18th best coach in the National Football League? Now, again, how do I know that he's not top 5? I have no clue.
He's an elite, all-time college football coach.
Sure.
Has that translated at times? Yes. Has it not? More. Yes. There's a lot of red flags. Urban, this week he's like, he's all frustrated because he's not around his players and stuff. It's like, dude, you're in the NFL now.
Yeah.
Okay? It's different.
I got a report from Wisconsin.
Bargaining agreement.
Donovan in Wisconsin saying on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, local radio up here in Wisconsin has reported that Aaron Rodgers, his house is scheduled for a deep cleaning here soon, and most likely means that he's coming to play.
What?
So Aaron Rodgers has cleaned the house. He's about to have the house cleaned in Green Bay. When you factor that in with the renewal of his Green Bay Country Club membership, the signs could be pointing to him returning to the Packers. What do we think of this, Rexrode?
There's some amazing real estate-related rumors that go along with sports. That's a new one, man. The deep cleaning. Why isn't it a deep cleaning to sell it?
He's getting it ready to come live there, man.
So the deep cleaning could only mean that he wants to live, not that he wants to sell it.
Sell it.
It could only mean that because they fluffed his couch pillow exactly like he likes it. So it's got to mean that he's coming to play for the Packers. Awesome.
That's got me fired up again. Thank you, Donovan.
All is well.
I'm ready. Bring me my quarterback back. Be nice. That makes me happy. The deep cleaning is in place. The country club membership is taken care of. Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing quarterback for the Green Bay Packers this year, ladies and gentlemen.
Is this true? Like, is this actually something that happened on radio?
I'm going by what Donovan has told me. I have no reason to not take Donovan at his word. You're on the text line.
Ask Donovan. Tell us what station, because I want to look at their Twitter feed. This is amazing.
Might have to do a Twitter search, Varen. By the way, like how does that information come out? How does the information that Aaron Rodgers is getting his house deep cleaned come out?
Someone from
the cleaning company?
Someone from the cleaning company knows someone at the radio station, I guess.
I guess so.
Checks out to me.
What a world we live in. When we come back, we will get back into SEC Media Days. Tennessee at the microphone today. What is the most challenging part of this job for Tennessee first-year head coach Josh Heupel? We'll get to that coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch on this beautiful morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Donovan from Wisconsin has updated us. The station in Wisconsin is 94.1 WJJO out of Madison, Wisconsin. One of their DJs has said they saw a comment from someone on the Packers Facebook page that Aaron Rodgers getting that house deep cleaned. He's coming back. Not sure which one, but that's where the post is coming from.
Outstanding.
So Packers Facebook. We've talked about Predators Facebook and some things that you could find there. Packers Facebook getting to the bottom of Aaron Rodgers getting his house deep cleaned, coming back to play for the Packers.
So
Joe, your thoughts?
This is big information. So then I went to Twitter and I found 94.1 WJJO, Madison, Wisconsin. Their last tweet was April 21st. Is that bad? Oh, sorry. April 28th.
Okay. So
they've been disbanded.
3 months.
Yeah. They've been disbanded.
Okay.
No, maybe I don't know. Maybe this is an old account.
Look,
I'm going to go to WJJO.com.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't their account saying it. It was their DJ has done some digging here. They've gotten to the bottom of a Facebook post.
Wouldn't you put that right on Twitter?
Yeah, I would.
If you had such a bombshell?
Absolutely.
I would think so.
It's amazing.
So it was from a Facebook post.
So now, if Aaron Rodgers comes back and he plays for the Packers, do we credit this radio station and these Facebook commenters for the scoop of getting the house deep cleaned?
Sure.
I think that's how this works, right?
Yes.
Let's not forget it. 94.1 WJJO, even though you haven't tweeted in 3 months. This is worth a tweet, WJJO. What is there a name of the? Okay, here we go, Donovan. Is there a name of the show, Donovan? How about give me the DJ's name? How about that?
Just give us the DJ's name, and then we'll see if he put it out there on his personal page.
Yeah, if it's Facebook, yeah,
That's right.
I don't. I mean, I have an account, but I don't really.
Not on there much.
No,
not a big social media guy.
Well, I mean, I'm on
Other
Twitter.
than Twitter.
I'm on Twitter all the time.
Right.
That's my one.
There you go.
Facebook, yeah, can't get there.
There's a lot,
especially in the last year-ish.
There's a lot on Facebook.
Got some uncles like, dude, shut up. My God.
I think we've all
what are
got
you
that.
Talking about.
I think we've all got that.
How many crazy uncles on Facebook can one person have?
Several. Apparently is the answer to that question. I'm going to be joined by Chase McCabe to begin the 9 o'clock hour. He's down in Hoover, Alabama for SEC Media Days. For our SEC Media Days coverage, brought to you by Volunteer Hose and Gasket, equipment supplier in Nashville, including gaskets, hoses, and hose fittings, seals, packing joints, gauges, fire protection, cups, belting, and more. If you need it, they've got it. Make sure you check out our friends at Volunteer Hose and Gasket. Tennessee on the microphone coming up today. I believe at 10:30 is when Josh Heupel is scheduled to speak at SEC Media Days. Obviously, the first SEC Media Days for Josh Heupel, taking over in year one as head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers. Joe, as you look at this program, as you look at what Heupel is now walking into with Tennessee football, what are some of the biggest challenges that you think he faces, he and his coaching staff, to try to get this football program that has just been mired in mediocrity, and sometimes less than that, for the past decade, back to relevancy in the SEC East, in the SEC, and eventually in the national conversation when it comes to college football? What are the biggest challenges that Tennessee football as a whole and Josh Heupel now face as they head into year one under a new regime?
It's one moment in time, and a lot can change. A lot will change. But I would say that right now, the fact that in the 24/7 sports rankings, Tennessee is 40th in the nation and Vanderbilt is 25th is a little bit of a glimpse of what my answer would be, which is that the biggest challenge for Josh Heupel is recruiting, and I'm not even talking about getting Ty Simpson and company to come to Tennessee. I'm talking about warding off some of these programs that are now coming in here, or even if it's not in the state, elsewhere, beating you for prospects that I think in the past Tennessee would have been able to land. I mean, we're not – Pruitt got some big-time recruits. And even that, he did not have the talent level required. Now, you can also say coaching was a big part of them not being as competitive as they needed to be, especially offensive coaching.
Yes.
But now you will have bigger challenges that Pruitt didn't face because Pruitt left a mess that now the next guy gets to clean up. You have to recruit through the looming sanctions and all that stuff, whatever may come of that, and just the overall, I mean, the trajectory, the negativity, one coaching change after another, it just diminishes the job, makes it tougher for each person, successive person. So that's it to me is recruiting. First, starting with, can you get back to the point where Kentucky, Ole Miss, name your, so-so SEC program isn't coming in here and beating you out for kids that you want.
Yeah, and that's, to your point, it was going the other way in UCF. I mean, the record on the field going the other way with UCF, the recruiting going the wrong way at UCF during the end of Josh Heupel's tenure there, albeit a very short tenure and a very high bar that was there when Josh Heupel took over. So I think it's important to point those things out when you're having these conversations. Scott Frost got that program with UCF to one of the top non-Power 5 programs in the entire country. So it's important to remember that. But the fact remains that the record on the field, the recruiting rankings, were going the opposite direction under Josh Heupel. So I think before, everything that you factor in with Tennessee, with the possible NCAA sanctions, how bad they've been the last couple of years, how difficult it is to recruit in the SEC with so many other programs recruiting at a high level, I think that was a concern with Josh Heupel outside of all those things. And when you factor all those things in, I think that's pretty clearly at the top of the list of challenges for Josh Heupel. On the field, I'd say it's quarterback. Like, you've got to find a way, and I think this ties directly into recruiting. You've got to find a way to make this offense exciting. And a way to make this offense exciting is it being productive. And you've got to have a quarterback that can run your system and that you can build around. And I think the mark of a good quarterback coach, and I think Dan Mullen is phenomenal at this. I think Dan Mullen is phenomenal at identifying the strengths and weaknesses of his quarterback, building game plans around those strengths and those weaknesses, and letting that be the system they run offensively. I mean, he's got his bread and butter plays, and we all know that. But I think Dan Mullen, and really to a degree Lane Kiffin, are really good at identifying the strengths of their quarterback and saying, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is what he does really well. I didn't think Jeremy Pruitt had the first clue of how to do that. That's got to be important for Josh Heupel. He's got to be able to, number one, identify who's the starter going to be, and when you do that, make sure that your system fits their skill set, because that's how you're successful in today's college football. It's the quarterback, and that's been, other than Josh Dobbs, it's been a while since Tennessee's had some quarterbacks that really and truly have been successful, especially in SEC play.
Yeah, so this first year, picking the right guy, getting that guy ready. I mean, that's the thing. You can't even in the short term here. You can't go through camp and be splitting up these reps forever. I mean, you got to identify that guy, and then you need a big season out of him and a big season out of this offense, and then early on you have something to show people, and all of them are, Milton, if he comes into Tennessee and it gets the job and does really well after all the hype and all the disappointment at Michigan, that says something. You got the younger guys in the program who have been up and down in their opportunities. No big surprise, but if you turn one of them into a consistent quarterback, that would say something. And then Hooker, same thing. I mean, he was pretty good at Virginia Tech, but not great. So you want to get as many of them ready as possible. You want great competition, but the sooner you can have someone at that position excel, and I think the sooner you help yourself in this big challenge. Again, because I think when you get the big quarterback recruit in your class, that quarterback recruit is one of your best recruiters. And that's, to me, that's the big hope for Heupel is, I'm a quarterback whisperer. You want to come here, and you start there. That's kind of like your foundation.
I'm interested, like with the quarterback specifically, when the depth chart shakes out, because we've talked to different people. Some people feel like Hendon Hooker is the leader in the clubhouse for the quarterback spot. David Ubben pretty strong in his belief that Joe Milton is going to be the guy at the end of the day. I've not heard a lot about Harrison Bailey. I know he was just at the Manning Passing Academy, and we'll see if he can take a big step from his true freshman year to his sophomore year. But I do wonder, like, if he's not the starter this year, if you're Harrison Bailey, are you looking around saying, maybe I ought to hit up that transfer portal and go somewhere else, because he's a 5-star guy. He came in at the end of last year, and basically at the end of last year, the keys got turned over to him, and for better or for worse, that's who they were rolling with, at least for half the game. He got some playing time and, had some moments where he looked okay, had some other moments where he looked like a true freshman. If they get all the way through this year and Harrison Bailey's not the starting quarterback, I think there's a pretty strong chance he may move on after that.
Oh, no question. I mean, and that's how it goes. I mean, and maybe name, image, likeness intensifies that, but it was already pretty clear. You have a quarterback in each class, and then at some point the incumbent's gone, and you have a competition, and usually the loser of the competition is going to end up somewhere else. So I think a couple of these guys, I would think, would be moving on. And of course, this doesn't even include Caden Salter, who already has moved on because of his own trouble.
Hugh Freeze.
To Hugh Freeze and Liberty.
You think anybody asked Heupel today about Caden Salter and like why he came to that decision?
It's actually, that would be a good. I hope so.
Yeah,
that would be a worthwhile question, because, and look, I wouldn't expect Heupel to get into the weeds on that and really give details, but I still look at that and say, man, Salter must have handled the aftermath terribly.
Yeah,
on its face, what he did, I think a large, massive, strong majority of coaches would not have kicked that kid off the team for what he did. So he must have really handled it poorly after that. So if that's the case, hopefully he matures.
We'll continue the conversation on the Vols and college athletics as a whole when we come back, including a lot of money the NCAA has spent on defense in these Supreme Court cases that we've talked about for the last few weeks and months. We'll get to all that coming up next, as well as taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Nashville SC fans, join ESPN 94.9 this Monday, July the 26th from 7 to 8 p.m. for NSC Backstage featuring Nashville SC players and coaches. Watch the show online via 102.5 The Game's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and at thegamenashville.com. NSC Backstage brought to you by Camarena Tequila, the official tequila of Nashville SC. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. And Joe, Greg Sankey was speaking yesterday at SEC Media Days, and again, we'll have Chase McCabe coming up live from SEC Media Days to begin the top of the next hour at 9 o'clock, and talked about all the different challenges that the conference went through last year in dealing with COVID and the pandemic and everything that went along with that. And some tax documents have come out from the NCAA that shows that the NCAA was hit pretty hard by the pandemic, also by some legal fees as well. The NCAA spent nearly $68 million on legal services during the 2019-20 fiscal year as it lost hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. I believe they lost more than 50% of their revenue this past season. A lot of that had to do with not having March Madness, and I believe the loss for that from media rights alone was $702 million of not having the March Madness tournament take place last year. So when you dig through this, the losses, the defense fees, all these different things, there was a lot of money lost last year by the NCAA, and $2.8 million of that went to Mark Emmert. Good time to be him.
2-9.
2-9, excuse me.
So Dan Murphy from ESPN, I think he's the only one who had this story yesterday, got the docs. So it's interesting. You lose more than 50% of your revenue, but Mark Emmert gets a slight raise. Donald Remy, who is the COO, a cool 1.7. Executive VP Stan Wilcox, 1.3. A lot of NCAA employees, more than $500K, and about $34 million of that money was spent on the NCAA versus Alston case. It got to the Supreme Court and turned out to be a complete dunking.
And they just got torched.
In a society where we can't agree on what color the sky is based on your political party, the entire world agrees that the NCAA is a load of crap.
It truly was amazing.
Pretty astounding stuff. So you spent $34 million to take that facial, just to take that complete societal dunking on your head, and then paid everybody the same, and it's pretty amazing. So this is a nice little reminder for everybody that Emmert is.
He's got a great job, man.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If there's a lot of complaining about why Mark Emmert keeps this job and everything, he gets paid a lot of money, but who the hell wants this job right now?
Nobody.
Because I tell you what. And this came up on Twitter yesterday a little bit from people who were in Hoover, and I would agree. Greg Sankey has been pretty impressive as the SEC commissioner.
Yep.
And now, in fact, I've argued directly with Greg Sankey about name, image, likeness, and I did not like his viewpoint on that. But the bottom line is, everybody on that side of the table was trying to fight against all this. But he still understands and is able to be nimble and adjust to things that are happening. I thought he had a really strong address yesterday. Not sure the Bob Dylan stuff was necessary, but whatever. Times are a-changing. And I will say that, man, Greg Sankey in that job would be a lot better choice than Mark Emmert. Now, Sankey also, as Emmert did last week, Sankey basically came out and talked about the NCAA. Here's a quote from Sankey. Quote, "We're not going to solve every problem and be able to legislate college athletics programs through the NCAA manual. We can cover some aspects, but 450 pages seems less relevant today than it ever has before," end quote. So, being the president of the NCAA, it won't maybe not mean the same thing, although you can probably still get paid a lot of money for not great results.
Yep.
But he would be a much better leader and someone I think a lot of people would have a lot more confidence in moving forward to whatever the NCAA is going to become. It's not going to go away, as some people are saying. It's the collective of the schools the organizations. I mean, somebody's got to draw up the tournament bracket and stuff. Distribute cash to everybody. But it is being
remodeled.
Yeah. What's the word for depowerified? Depowerified. It is.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, that's a new word I just made up. It's losing a lot of power moving forward, and everyone is acknowledging that. But this story on Emmert and everything, it's just an amazing glimpse into just how incompetent they have been.
Oh, and speaking of Greg Sankey, he spoke yesterday to kick off SEC Media Days down in Hoover, Alabama, and one of the many topics that he got into was COVID-19 and trying to manage that as they move forward, hopefully closer to normal this year in college football in the SEC. And there is a target for each team for 80% in terms of vaccination rates. And according to Greg Sankey, 6 of the 14 teams in the SEC have reached the 80% mark for vaccinations. And Sankey saying, quote, "That number needs to grow and grow rapidly. We have learned how to manage through a COVID environment, but we do not yet have control of a COVID environment." So Greg Sankey calling pretty publicly yesterday for teams to crank it up a notch in terms of their vaccination requirements. And also, basically, without saying it directly, basically said, as Bob Bowlesby did in the Big 12 as well, yeah, if you run into any problems this year with COVID-19, there's probably a pretty good chance you're going to have to forfeit some games, which I don't think that's a big surprise. I think if that happens this year, we absolutely could see some teams forfeit some games, which is not what anybody wants to see. I think in college football, that's much more likely than it would be in the NFL.
It's not what anybody wants to see. The interesting thing about that, of course, is, and the NCAA, the SEC last year, you think about all they did to get those games in. I mean, let's remember, each of these games is a piece of television inventory.
Yep.
Not to mention, now this year, it's also, you're back to, it's a huge event in your town. It's a huge event in the college town of record at that point. It's a big deal with the attendance, the revenue from that. So if you're just getting rid of these things, that's significant. So it's one of those things where if it got too extensive, I could also see maybe a little bit of rethinking on that. But obviously the idea right now is to pressure people, right?
Well, I think it's a little different, though, too, this year, right? Because you had last year with the conference-only schedule, there were multiple bye weeks. So you had – there's multiple bye weeks anyway, but there were some teams last year that had 2 weeks off at one point. Right. That's not going to happen this year. You've got a non-conference schedule back in play. The college football playoff is what it is. You've got the conference tournament or the conference championship schedule. There's not a ton of room to move around this year in the college football schedule. So I think it would be a little bit more challenging to do that this year and to move everything else around. Would be my guess.
No doubt. No question. No. And, look, this is a coordinated public pressure effort. Bowlesby, Sankey, everybody, and frankly, the coaches should all cut commercials. It's a very different type of deal. Now we actually have a way to fight this, and some people are choosing not to. But if you get to that threshold and you don't have to deal with the testing, that's what everybody wants. 6 of the 14. Honestly, I would say, I could have seen it being worse than that. I could have seen it being lower. Yeah. The fact that they're just about half of the league right now is not terrible. It's not great.
As we know, Vanderbilt is one of those.
Vanderbilt will be 100. They will be 100% vaccination because Vanderbilt students have to be. I'm assuming, like in the Big Ten, that'll probably be the thing for Northwestern too, the private university in the Big Ten. Indiana University has had it upheld to in a court that they can mandate vaccinations from students. I don't know how much we're going to see that around the SEC, but look, man, the bottom line is look at everything that's going on in the world. Not like basically every single person hospitalized in California with this stuff is not vaccinated. It won't protect you from testing positive, but it will actually protect you. That's the point. And then, the virus doesn't mutate, et cetera, et cetera. We all live happily ever after.
That's the plan.
There you go.
That's what we're searching for here.
That's simple.
When we come back, we will head down to Hoover, Alabama. Our own Chase McCabe from Darren Donick. And Chase is down live at SEC Media Days. We'll catch up with him. Look ahead to Tennessee today. I believe Vanderbilt tomorrow at SEC Media Days as well. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com. You're on ESPN 102.5, The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Konezovic, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And our very own Chase McCabe is down live in Hoover, Alabama for SEC Media Days. Our SEC Media Days coverage brought to you by Volunteer Hose and Gas Ticket. And Chase is now on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Chase, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
I am doing great. How are you guys this morning?
We are doing wonderful.
Good.
Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning on the show. So, Chase, you've been down there for one day, day two of Media Days taking place today with Tennessee on the mic as well. We'll get to more of that coming up here in just a few minutes. But what stood out to you from day one of SEC Media Days down in Hoover, Alabama?
Well, I think it was probably the comments of Commissioner Greg Sankey. He did his annual State of the SEC, State of College Football address, and hit on a lot of different things, including, name, image, and likeness, and the economics of college sports, which I think is probably the biggest topic here. Dan Mullen and Ed Ogeron, everybody was asked about that. Shane Beamer as well from South Carolina, and so he talked about that, and he talked about that he would like to see Congress get involved and make some sort of regulations on this, because right now it's the wild, wild west, and it's up to the conferences and the schools and the players to all figure it out, and they just need some help on it. So, I mean, that was one of the big things, and as you can imagine, the expanded college football playoff came up as well. So those are kind of the big things, and now Greg Sankey's making his rounds with the radio stations. We hope to record something with him a little later today and be able to expand upon some of those comments.
And of course, Chase, he talked also about the vaccinations, the importance of vaccinations, the consequences of not getting vaccinations. Have you figured out which 6 teams are vaccinated? This is the information.
Done some digging?
Yeah. Has anybody told you this on Radio Row? I'd like to know this. We do know Vanderbilt will be one of them, but what do you think about just that idea that basically we're probably looking at some forfeits this fall?
Yeah, I mean those were pretty strong words from the commissioner of like, hey, we don't have the room to mess with the schedule like we did last year. We're going to play the games where they're scheduled, and if the forfeit word comes up, then we'll address that as it comes about. But I thought that was very interesting, and there are reporters that are asking every coach, what percentage of your team have been vaccinated. As you can imagine, Dan Mullen, Ed Orgeron, Shane Beamer, they're not going to go down that road. They're being very careful about how they answer those questions. But I think, inquiring minds want to know where they are on all of that because, Greg Sankey praised the conference and the schools of being able to get through the 101st college football season. But we all know it was tough, and there were some obstacles along the way, and they don't want to go through that again. They want this to be as normal as possible. And so he made it a point several times to bring that up and say that vaccinations are readily available. He wasn't necessarily saying, hey, go get vaccinated. He was just saying that, they're a resource, and then it's your choice.
I mean, if I was a coach who had a vaccinated team, I'd want everybody to know.
I would think.
Wouldn't you?
No,
so if everybody gets asked, we'll know.
Right. I mean, that takes a question away. Like, hey, it's answered. Move on.
Chase McCabe on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Chase, Tennessee, day 2 today here at SEC Media Days in Hoover. Josh Heupel, obviously his first SEC Media Days. What intrigues you the most about the Vols coming into today for Josh Heupel's first trip to Hoover, Alabama?
Well, I'm curious just how he handles it all. What does he do on Radio Row? I think Radio Row is very, very important, especially to a coach that's new to that school. It's a recruiting tool. That's what it can be used for. You're going on in different markets. So I'm curious to see how he uses that. I'm curious to see how he addresses, the pending sanctions and things that he inherited that wasn't his fault. I'm curious how he approaches the transfer portal and everything going on with that, and just how he handles himself, having never done something of this magnitude before. I thought Shane Beamer yesterday with his first SEC Media Days handled himself well. He seemed like he wasn't nervous and just knew that it was a part of it, and he did it. And so I'm curious if Heupel's going to do the same thing. This is important for him. I mean, this is not a make or break, going to win, going to determine if the fan base is on your side or not, but how you conduct yourself in a setting like this, I think, is very important because we haven't heard from him a whole lot since he's been hired. He came on our show. He's done a few things here and there, but mostly he's been worried about the football team and trying to build a new culture. So I think this is another step in that process to be able to help form that culture by getting some things out that he wants to get out.
And Shane Beamer actually did the Spurrier photo. He went to the Arby's, apparently. I haven't seen this.
Yeah.
But apparently now that's good stuff. See, Heupel should recreate being served the subpoena, or something like that, harken back to a classic Tennessee moment. How is it? Does it feel the same there, Chase? Does it look the same? The lobby, is the lobby more cleared out? What's the scene like?
Yeah, they're not. Now, you've been down here a few times, Joe. Usually there are fans all gathered in the lobby waiting on coaches and players. That is not allowed this year. So that's different because you can actually go sit in the lobby and get off of Radio Row if you need to. I would say, usually there's probably 35 to 40 radio stations on Radio Row. That number's probably cut in half, but it feels normal. I mean, it feels as close to normal as just about anything has in a while. You're seeing, a lot of people walk over to tables and do the interviews like they usually do. And there, some of the coaches did come down Radio Row yesterday. The players came down Radio Row yesterday. So I would expect more of the same in that sense today. So we're getting back, and they have said that if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. If you're not, you do need to wear a mask. And so I've seen some masks, and obviously I've seen some people not wearing them. So it's getting that way. The hustle and bustle is picking up because day 2 is always a little bit more exciting than the first day because you have one more school. But things are hopping.
Chase, last thing for you here. As you look ahead to the next couple of days, who are you most excited to hear from? Lane Kiffin later today, Nick Saban tomorrow, or Mike Leach tomorrow?
Oh, I mean, I don't think there's a wrong answer there. In all seriousness, I am curious of Nick Saban's thoughts on a lot of these things, like name, image, and likeness and the playoff. And, he always has an agenda when he comes to SEC Media Day. So I'm curious to see what that is. And, the Lane Train and Mike Leach, the 2 Mississippi coaches, they're going to be entertaining. So I am looking forward to that, and I really hope Lane Kiffin makes his way to Radio Row, because if you think about this is really his first true SEC Media Day since he was at Tennessee, and that one time, because last year was the COVID year. So I think he's come a long way in his entertainment value since then. So I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say.
Well, we're looking forward to it as well. Going to be a good day today at SEC Media Days. Chase McCabe will have you covered all day long from SEC Media Days down in Hoover, Alabama. Our coverage brought to you by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. Chase, great stuff, man. Have fun down there, and we'll talk to you down the road.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Chase McCabe of 102.5 The Game does a great job on Darren Donica. Chase McCabe, a wearer of many hats here on this radio station. Going to be an interesting day today at SEC Media Days. We mentioned Josh Heupel. Kirby Smart should be getting underway about right now. He may already be underway. That's not all that exciting.
He's started. And
Mark Stoops from Kentucky today as well at 1:30. Lane Kiffin, the Lane Train, 2:55 today. So
that'll
be fun.
Kick things up.
Clark Lee making his SEC Media Days debut tomorrow for Vanderbilt at 10:30. Nick Saban tomorrow as well. Mike Leach and Jimbo Fisher. That's a pretty good lineup tomorrow.
That is a pretty good lineup. Speaking of Clark Lee, a lot of people talking about the no numbers.
Yeah.
No numbers on the roster. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's weird just from the standpoint of if you're a coach, like, how do you tell who's who out there running around, right? Like, I mean, that would be my biggest problem with it.
I went to a spring scrimmage, and I was like, how do you guys do this?
Yeah.
Because I had no idea. I'm like, was that Mike Wright who threw that pass?
Maybe Clark Lee, he knows his players so well. Like, like me watching a Predators practice, I don't necessarily need to see anybody's number. Like, from watching them as much as I do, I know what it looks like when Ryan Johansson's skating. Like, I know what it looks like when Calle Yarncroke is out there skating. Maybe that's Clark Lee with his players.
Yeah,
even though he's not even seen him play a game yet.
That's a lot fewer players. And, obviously, a Johansson and Arvidsson sitting next to each other, it's easy, right?
Sure.
Well, my question is, so let's say there's, 10, 12 guys who are just kicking butt. Did they get their numbers, 1 week? Is it a gradual add of numbers? What if someone gets hurt? I mean, you didn't really earn your number, right? You got hurt.
Yeah. I don't know. That's an interesting strategy.
These are questions for Clark Lee tomorrow.
But, hey, he's doing something right. The recruiting's going very well for Vanderbilt and Clark Lee so far. Very well.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the messaging, everything he's done has been impressive. But I feel like you talk about 100-plus kids. Do you have, different colored socks or something to identify play? I don't know. It's got to make things harder for the coaches.
I would think so. But I don't know. Maybe there's a way they identify them that we just don't know about. They've got their own numbers.
Like I said, if you know your team that well, especially a coach taking over a new team
that you've never seen actually play in a football game before,
yeah, I guess that's impressive.
Be very impressive. When we come back, we will get back into the Nashville Predators and David Poyle's vision for this team. Some moves already have been made this offseason. At least another move coming tomorrow with the expansion draft underway. Do we believe in David Poyle's vision for this Predators team? We'll get to that coming up next. Take your thoughts as well on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Tune in to Nashville Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9. Tonight the Sounds begin a 6-game series on the road against Jacksonville, the AAA affiliate of the Miami Marlins. Pre-game show with Jeff Him starts at 5:50, and the first pitch is at 6:05. Nashville Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9, presented by 312 Pizza Company. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Talking Nashville Predators, the expansion draft coming up tomorrow, with the Seattle Kraken officially being welcomed to the National Hockey League. So some more moves will be on the horizon for the Nashville Predators. And Arvidsson already out the door to L.A. Ryan Ellis traded over the weekend to the Philadelphia Flyers. David Poile, Nashville Predators general manager, has made it pretty clear that getting younger is a priority. They've done that to this point. Draft picks in return for Victor Arvidsson, a couple of young prospects in return for Ryan Ellis, I think both of which have a very good shot to be on the NHL team, but we'll see about how big of an impact they can make. Joe, as you look at the moves that have already been made this offseason, the moves still yet to come in the expansion draft, and we don't know specifically what that's going to be as of yet. David Poyle pretty clearly thinks this group needs a shakeup. Do you buy into the not rebuilding that David Poyle has insisted that he's not doing? Quote, a competitive rebuild that he's called it. Do you buy into that even be a possibility? Or if you're changing things up this much, and especially if you're changing things up this much and you're not able to get rid of one of those two big contracts, is there even a scenario where you can change things up so quickly and get back to being competitive? And by competitive, I mean competing for a Stanley Cup. Does that scenario exist in your mind?
Well, sure. It exists with, oh my gosh, Tomasino, one of the stories of the season as a rookie. And, whoa, Tolvanen has established himself, and he's even better than last year, and the Forsberg's the floor. And, oh, but Forsberg's scoring 40. And Cody Glass, oh my goodness, he just needed to get out of Vegas. Look, this guy's a star in the making. Dante Fabro has figured it all out. Oh, my gosh. Saros is the same goalie forever.
That's a lot of things.
Matt Duchene is back to 60. In fact, he's a 70-point player. Ryan Johansson has figured out consistency every night.
That's a lot of things.
I can keep going. I mean, they could be one of the greatest teams in NHL history next year if every single thing broke their way. And they could also easily, as I would predict right now, not make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's about where they are at the moment. And look, I've said this, and there are people that continue to disagree with me on this, which, I mean, that's fine. You're entitled to your own opinion, but there's no way you can convince me right now this team is a better team than the team that closed out the season in May or whenever it was. Was it early June? I can't even keep up anymore.
It was like May 27th.
May 27th. Okay,
yeah.
So you can't convince me that this team is better right now than it was. Now, again, I realize the offseason is still underway. There are many things left to happen. With the expansion draft being one of those, free agency coming up, more trades could be made. I realize all these things. So I always hesitate to really paint a big picture of an offseason until it's actually over, because the picture can change pretty quickly, as we've seen so far with David Poyle this offseason. But I said heading into the offseason, the Predators need to be realistic about the way they just finished the season. I think what's very easy to do in the NHL is to get caught up in, the second half of the year, we were one of the best teams in the NHL from a points percentage-wise, and you get put out in the first round of the playoffs, and you say, well, that's okay. If we play like we played in the second half of last season, we're going to be fine next year, which is true. But then you factor in, okay, our goaltender during that stretch had about a .945 save percentage, which is just absurd. I think UC Saros is very good. I've seen enough at this point from UC Saros to convince me that he can play at a very high level in the NHL. A very high level in the NHL is about a .920 save percentage, .925 save percentage.
Which is his career mark, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, he's been very good.
.920.
Yeah, he's been very good. And I think he can continue to be very good. So that's a gigantic positive that you have for your team as you continue to move forward here. I just, the offense isn't there. And the offense, quite frankly, it's not really all that close to being there. I mean, they've got to find ways, especially if what happens tomorrow in the expansion draft that I think will happen, and that is both Duchene and Johansson are still here. Like, those guys, yes, you can hope that they're going to come back and they're going to earn their money, and Duchene's going to be a 55, 60-point guy, whatever the bar would be, and Johansson's going to get back to his 15 goals in the regular season and 45, 50 assists. Like, if that happens, then this team is probably going to be in pretty good shape. Based on what I've seen the last couple of years, I don't know how you could have any confidence that's going to happen. I just don't. And I think that puts you in a really tough spot, because not only do you have to try to figure out a way to make those guys work if you're stuck with them, but you also have to leave room for, all right, what about a Cody Glass? What about a Philip Tomasino? They've got to find significant playing time, and in my opinion, playing time in big roles to help them grow and mature in their career. Like, I think Philip Tomasino needs to be a top 6 guy. I think Eeli Tolvanen needs to be a top 6 guy. I think Cody Glass probably needs to be a top 6 guy.
There's only
6.
There's
only 6 spots, and those are 3 young guys right there. And I've not even brought up Mikhail Granlund yet, if they bring him back.
That's another one I forgot. Mikhail Granlund was re-signed and had an amazing year.
There you go. Add that
Tanner Jeannot backs up being protected and scores 15 goals and injures half the league with his checks.
His ferocious body checks that he has. Yes.
See, it all works out.
So, I mean, look, I think they're in a tough spot. We had Jim Diamond on earlier in the show from the Associated Press, and he described the Predators as kind of meh, right in the middle. They're not bad enough to be one of the worst teams in the league, and they're not really good enough to be a true Stanley Cup contender. So you're stuck right in the middle. That's a very tough spot to be. And not only is it a tough spot to be, it's also a very, very difficult position to get out of, unless you just completely tank. And I just don't see David Poile and the Predators doing that. So if they're not going to do that, that's a very difficult spot to try to work your way out of at that point.
Right. And again, you're trying to extend guys that you do want to be part of whatever your future is, whether you're going to be a team in the middle, a team just getting in the playoffs, a real contender. You want Forsberg, you want Ekholm to be part of those teams. You want them to be with you on the other side of whatever this is. And tanking, that's no way to get that done. That's not on the table.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Wayne texting in, if David Poile was fired, who would interview and hire his replacement? Would it be the ownership group or Sean Henry? Well, number one, David Poile's not going to be fired this offseason. I mean, he's just not. Now, I think he should be on the hot seat next year. I don't think that's the way I view it.
Yeah, I agree. I think he should be on the hot seat now, but that's the great question.
Right, like who's making that decision?
I mean, there is an ownership group. I mean, again, it's like if you're a fan, you're a fan who attends games, or even if you're a fan who pays for a cable system that carries the games, in some way you give your money to this whatever this team that you follow, and so you want to hear from the people who get your money.
Yeah.
Although some weird,
according to the poll question that Vingan threw up there, maybe people don't.
Pred's Facebook infiltrated Vingan's poll, and a bunch of people are like, I don't know, I don't want to hear from anybody who owns the team. Why would I want that? Bizarre. But, okay, I think most people would like some sort of, like, here's this person who is holding the GM, the coach, et cetera, accountable. Now, we know David Poile holds the coach accountable. David Poile has changed coaches a couple times in the last 7 years, right?
Yeah.
Who holds him accountable?
It's a good question.
According to Stillman, no media do.
Yeah.
Except Stillman.
I've heard that.
Yes.
Tim on YouTube says, Robby, we are bigger and stronger. We are better now than at the end of last year. And then ends it with ha-ha, so I can't tell if he's serious or not on YouTube.
Okay. I'm glad you added the ha-ha. Yeah, I mean, right now, but again, it's not a complete picture. So
No.
we don't know the final roster. We don't know all the other moves that are going to happen.
Well, and Elliot Friedman has said this 10 times already this offseason. It's David Poile. And one thing I will say about David Poile, he's not afraid to make a big move. And Elliot Friedman seems to think maybe they'll get into, a bigger move later this offseason. I don't know. Like, he's always kind of viewed the Ellis trade, the Arvidsson trade as maybe the next step to something bigger. I would assume when you add Ellis to that mix as well, maybe the Predators get involved in a free agency race, even though I still don't know that that's the right way to go.
Or is the big move some sort of trade that we can't anticipate right now?
It could be, but I mean, you're running out of assets, right? Like, what assets do you have to land a big trade that you're willing to part with? Like, maybe
Cody Glass?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe so. Like, are you willing to part with Philip Tomasino? I don't really see them being willing to do that. So, I mean, I don't know what assets they've got to really facilitate a big trade of huge consequence.
Well,
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do. I just don't see it.
The only way I could see that being really possible is if the Kraken does. The Kraken do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I guess it's a they. If Seattle does take one of those two guys.
Correct.
Because the thing is, I mean, if they don't, you are tied to those guys having huge roles in your team. I mean,
they're not going anywhere.
John Hines has obviously freedom to do what he wants with his lineup, but over the long haul, $8 million guys are going to play.
Well, tomorrow to me is your last chance to rid yourself of one of those two contracts for the foreseeable future. Because unless they start playing much better, which at that point, do you want to get rid of yourself? I don't know. I mean, maybe you do. Or, you get to a place where you feel comfortable buying them out, which I don't know why that would even be an option for them right now.
Maybe down the road.
Maybe down the road a little bit, but I just don't see it. Like this, there's no other expansion team coming in the league, and with the salary cap remaining flat, like you're gonna be hard pressed to move one of those two contracts.
So
tomorrow's it.
So if you look at it and you feel desperate to move one of them, do you do something like a Fabro, a first-round pick, blah, 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 crazy stuff
to
make it happen?
So I asked you this yesterday.
Would that even work? I don't know.
And you weren't willing to go there. If they get rid of, let's say they find a way to get Matt Duchene to Seattle, and it takes Dante Fabro going with him, is that a rebuild at that point? I mean, that's a lot of change.
Well, but again, the answer to that is, okay, then, is this swing for the fences that Elliot Friedman's talking about, is that the corresponding move? So I can't answer that until I know yes or no on that.
But I don't know what swing for the fences means, because there's not a free agent out there that qualifies to me as swinging for the fences.
Trading Forsberg and something else for somebody else massive. That's what it means to me. Who? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm like something like that, where you're totally reforming this team.
Right.
And then who knows what you have at that point. But it doesn't necessarily, if you do that, then the answer is no. No, you're not just in a pure rebuild. Because I think you may be onto something on next year is a lot about, like, let's really see what these young guys have. But again, there's still spots that are just occupied in that roster that you're not healthy scratching Duchene all year if you can't trade him.
No. He's got to play. And, I mean, I would hope, like, if you're stuck with him, I would hope you go right back to what you did at the end of the playoffs and just say, all right, you guys are here. Don't tell me about not getting an opportunity. I'm going to give you about 15 games here to start the season. Here's Forsberg, here's here's Johansson, here's Duchene. Show me what you got. Like, that's at that point, if I'm John Hines, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. And then, of course, if you're John Hines, you're hoping that you also are saying, and here's my second line centered by Mikhail Granlund, I hope. But who knows?
Cody Glass. Who knows? See what happens. Maybe Eric Haula comes in, third line center. Cody Glass in the AHL this year. Maybe it happens.
A lot to be determined.
A lot to be determined on that front. We'll continue the conversation on the Predators when we come back. Get to your thoughts as well on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Talking Nashville Predators, taking your thoughts as well on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Do you believe in the direction of this Predators team? Do you believe in the direction of David Poile and how he's handling this roster this offseason? Let us know on our text line. Joe Rexrode, David Poile getting a lot of conversation the last couple of days after his, quote, competitive rebuild comments. What did you make of those comments, and do you think maybe the trade gets a little bit more benefit of the doubt had David Poile the last couple of years, pretty much every move he's made, not worked out all that well?
Yeah, I don't know. I've wondered that. Like, is it because of his recent track record? I mean, Cody Glass is, it is what it is. He's a number 6 overall pick, kind of tough time breaking the lineup, hasn't exactly exploded onto the scene, has had some injuries. So, I mean, I think it's going to be seen as underwhelming in any regard, but I do wonder, because of Poile's string of misses here on big moves, does that add skepticism? There's a lot around Poile, including a lot of arguing that I keep having back and forth with Stillman.
What are you arguing about now?
Well, so, I mean, I feel like I'm in like this triangle of terror with Stillman and Vingan. I think what we need to do is we need to put Stillman and Vingan together.
Yeah.
And just let them have it out. But there's a lot of various things that are being argued about. But Stillman, here's where he gets me angry yesterday, is he actually suggested, as we were texting back and forth during his show, and I don't even remember why I texted him initially, but, you know, that he believes that access is part of, like, why – I guess is it just why more media in this town aren't just screaming that David Poile must be fired right now? It's just, and let me tell you, and this is a thing that I think a lot of times fans get that in their heads, like, well, you just don't want to lose access. Well, you're not going to lose access. No one's getting more or less access to David Poile if they criticize him or not. I mean, you know, David Poile's a professional. He went out and talked to all of us last week, took note of the fact that we've ripped him. But, I mean, that's just reality. That goes with the territory. David Poile's not going to be like, you know what, you get no more access. Well, I will say, I mean, when David Poile made the Arvidsson trade, he did one interview, right? He did the interview on Darren Donick and Chase.
Correct.
So there wasn't even a press conference with that. He's done resulting press conferences. It's just not a consideration. We're in organizations, and I'm in a lot of them. Too many. Man, you add up the dues.
You are in a lot.
Get out some of these stupid organizations. Not stupid. I love you, all of your organizations. But these organizations, a big part of why you're in them is because they advocate for you if anybody does try to take away access. There's no access question here. So please stop with that, Jared. Now, as far as should David Poile be fired, my stance on that is if you have someone, you being whoever it is, who would make this decision for the Preds, whoever that would be, if you have a person in mind that you think is better, like right now could come in and do a better job, do it. But I'm never an advocate of just fire away and then let's look around and try to find someone. I mean, sometimes you have to.
Right.
And that may come with Poile. Or may be close to that with Poile. But again, I think you and I are in agreement on let's be realistic. No one's firing him right now.
Right.
So we could sit here all day and say, fire Poile, fire Poile. I mean, but it's not happening. I do think that the bigger question there is, again, ownership for the Preds, who is going to step up and be publicly accountable. Because you're asking for people to give you money, and you are getting the money.
Well, and to that point, George on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, ownership seems to be very disinterested with building a winner. They're content to print money on just another lower Broadway entertainment venue. That's why there's no accountability at the GM level. Poile builds teams good enough to sell tickets, but not good enough to go to the distance. That's coming from George on the text line.
Okay, so George, I'll say this. Let me say this in David Poile's defense. He hasn't been out here like, you know what, we're fine. Let's just make the playoffs and be good. He's been desperately trying to get a Stanley Cup and has done everything he could think of to try to do it.
A lot of it hasn't worked.
It hasn't worked, but please don't mistake that for some sort of satisfaction with where they are. Nah, this is fine. Poyle has tried. Poyle badly wants to win a Stanley Cup. Don't be confused by that. He's made a bunch of mistakes lately that have put him in a bad spot. That's as far as ownership, though. On that part of your comment, you just hit on why it's important for someone in ownership to talk. Because hey, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a business. But the thing is, too, as we know in sports, it's been an incredible environment in that place. Even this year, when it was half full, it was fantastic in there, right? But you go down the wrong road for a certain amount, and it's gonna change. It's gonna change for the worse.
Let's go back to the text line. Heidi from Dixon texting in. Only general manager we've had, and we have no direction, no cups. Our best players in franchise history won't make the Hall of Fame, and many of the best players we drafted we didn't keep. Other great players came from other teams and got worse. Add it all up, and we need the future GM to make decisions for the future. And that's all great, but every time somebody sends these text messages, there's never an idea for who's going to be the future GM.
That's the
Who's
thing.
going to be the GM?
Right.
I don't necessarily discount the idea that maybe it's time for a new voice. I don't necessarily totally disagree with that. But who's it going to be? Like, he is the winningest general manager in the history of the National Hockey League. So who is it going to be that takes his place? I don't know.
Right. No, I agree. But so what you just said there and what Heidi just said is really an example of you can spin David Poyle's career any way you want. You can say that, and you can talk about the longevity, and you can certainly look at his Preds career and limitations and struggles and things that were out of his control and a lot of good things he did, and the fact that he got them to within 2 wins of the Cup. And then you can look at what's happened since then. In full-on buy mode, he's been bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's me being kind. So you can spin it to be this amazing thing or this awful thing, and the truth is in the middle.
Let's go back to the text line.
It's been overall good, and it's been really bad lately.
Carlos texting in. I have no problem with the direction Poyle is going. He still has a good history with the club and is the most seasoned GM out there. I think he has other things in the works behind the curtain, and I expect other announcements after tomorrow night during the entry draft as well. So saying maybe some more trade activity coming up later in the NHL draft itself after the expansion draft.
Who's that?
Carlos.
Well, Carlos, Jared Stillman thinks that you're worried about access.
Yes.
You can't possibly have the opinion that Poyle should be anything but fired, on your own. It has to be because you're worried about access.
Jose texting in, asking about Igor Afanasyev, who is a prospect for the Predators. How close is he to making the team? Made some strides the past couple of years. He's 6'4", 201 pounds, 20 years old. My guess is he's probably still a year away, would be my guess. But I think a nice prospect that they have.
Hell of a name.
Yeah. Can't wait till Gunnar Fontaine comes running around
There's
here.
Some good names.
My goodness.
All right, Jeff Gordon. What do you think about Jeff Gorton?
Jeff Gordon? Yeah. Oh, for GM?
Yeah.
I thought you meant as his name. I was like, well, it makes me think of NASCAR.
I was going to say, it makes me think of Gorton's
It's
fish
fine.
sticks.
I mean, typically, when you have people suggesting to replace Poyle, they typically say, all right, we'll bring in somebody young. Like Kyle Dubas has come in for Toronto, and he's young, very analytically driven, and look, you can knock Toronto for the playoffs, and that's deservedly so. But they were pretty average to below average before he got there, and he's come in, and he's done an okay job. I don't know if they're going to be able to break through and actually win a Stanley Cup, because when you give 4 players that much money, it's very difficult to construct a roster around you that's capable of winning, as they keep finding out in the playoffs on a yearly basis. It's very difficult to do that. So I've heard the younger route is the way to go. I just wonder, if I'm sure over there in that room, there is a long-term plan for GM. I just don't know if the long-term plan for GM is going outside the organization and bringing somebody else in, or is it promoting from within to maybe a Jeff Kelty or a Brian Poyle and letting them have the general manager job whenever that day comes that David Poyle is done. But it's not like they've not thought about this. I just don't know what their plan is. They like to stay inside the organization for a lot of things. I would not be surprised if the next general manager is inside the organization. So if that's the case, if you're a Predators fan, Are you okay with that? Because I think that's the most likely route they're going to go. So would you rather have David Poyle, or would you rather have them go within the organization? Because I still think whenever that day happens, the most likely outcome to me is they're going inside the organization. Well, I could be wrong. That's what I think they'll do.
We already knew this was a unique situation. General managers aren't general managers for the same professional sports team this long, hardly ever. Yep. Very rare. Mute.
Had a mute.
Mute. There you go. You're in the mute
down
train
3-1
now. But then think about that, and then it's just a preordained internal promotion? If I'm a Preds fan, again, the way things are going, I'm sure that's your plan, that's your vision, and it goes in tandem with all these years have been better than they actually have been, and you're a contender, and again, living happily ever after. Well, now that things have changed like this, can you still pull that off?
Yeah.
To me, then again, where's ownership? You don't have a problem with that? You don't think at some point you need to rethink the whole plan?
Well, Wayne on the text line, why has the media not been more investigative into the ownership group? Who are they and what do they think about the situation? This always drives me nuts. It's like we have superpowers to drop in people's condos or something. We either get made the people in charge either get made available to talk to, or they don't. They either want to talk or they don't. And if they don't want to talk, there's nothing we can do about it. It's on them. I would rather them talk, but you can't just go chase somebody down the street and be like, "Hey, by the way, what do you think about the Predators?"
They did have they had the early on, didn't they have the guy who had the huge criminal case? You know what I'm talking about, in the ownership group.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember his name. I'll look that up during the break. But
so if there's something, if there's some sort of news item out there about someone, but I don't think
you don't want that.
I think we're going to follow people around here. Then again, 99-1 or whatever in Wisconsin figured out that Aaron Rodgers had a deep cleaning.
That's true.
So
deep cleaning. So maybe
we need to rethink the way we do things.
Start talking to the deep cleaners of the house is going on. Maybe that's what we need to do. We'll continue the conversation on the Predators when we come back. Got a lot more thoughts to get to on the text line as well. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell, Michelle Knezovic here with you today on this Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. We got a lot of your thoughts to roll through quickly on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Gator Tim texting in, Poyle is great at drafting and developing defensemen. That is his only great quality. Both of his coaches have had greater success outside of this organization. That should tell you all you need to know about his ability to evaluate talent.
Can he be the defenseman GM?
Maybe so.
Split up GM duties by offense.
Well, I mean,
defense?
yes, Barry Trotz has had greater success outside of this organization. I don't think there's any question about that. Peter Laviolette won a cup. He also got to the cup final with the Predators. He got to the cup final with Philadelphia. Like, you're talking about 2 games difference in Carolina and in Nashville. I get it. One's winning the cup, one's not winning the cup. Not a ton of difference there. Like, it's not like, you know, he was just this lights-out better coach in Carolina. He probably got better as a coach as he grew in the NHL.
Right.
Like, I don't buy into all that stuff.
We've talked a ton about Laviolette, and there's a shelf life, I think, on Laviolette.
Yeah.
That's been demonstrated.
Time and time again.
Although, I guess his first firing, Mike Milbury, there's an asterisk on that one.
Imagine 2 of them in the same room. That'd be something.
Yeah. Although back then, Laviolette was Mr. Happy Fun Time. So
Yes.
I don't know.
And then return to that this year in Washington.
Yeah, just not here. Thanks a lot, Philly.
Trevor texting in, Mike Fisher as the new GM of the Nashville Predators. What
There
is
you
that?
go. Pecorino assistant GM.
Somebody has a vote
Done.
for Steve Sullivan. Now, Steve Sullivan, a little bit more of a realistic option there.
He's actually
He has
been
served
in the
in
game.
management, but I don't think Steve Sullivan, I don't know if he's ready yet for being a general manager. Have a vote for Pekka as the GM, yes.
I mean, if you being this person who never speaks to anyone and we have no idea what this person thinks, are going to fire David Poyle, then I feel like you better have someone you feel strongly about coming in.
I would agree.
Maybe it is Jeff Gorton. So I think it's Gorton's fish sticks.
Well, he just got fired by the Rangers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I get it. It's the Rangers, and their ownership situation is nuts.
It's a little bit different.
I understand that. But, I mean, he did a good job of rebuilding the Rangers pipeline and restocking the cupboard. But what's he like? Okay, cool. Is that a guarantee to work here? I don't think so.
No, I wouldn't say it. I mean, that's the thing. You're not going to find anything that's guaranteed
Right.
to work here. I mean, I think at some point, not too far from now, the idea of a younger GM who's ready for a long haul is a good idea. Like you said, I think the plan's probably been the internal promotion. Gets harder when you go the wrong direction.
Let's go back to the text line. Shane from Ashland City texting in. I love David Poyle's strategy, but I feel like we're selling for dirt cheap. So Shane, he's fine with trading off these pieces. Not happy with the returns that are coming back if you're David Poyle and the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, that part of unloading salary is, again, like Subban. You had a guy who was a Norris finalist a year earlier, and you got very little for Subban. But we all saw that for what it was. Ellis is different. It's not as much of a salary dump, but that's part of the reason for this. And that's the problem with signing big contracts and then realizing in 2 or 3 years later that you need to get out of that contract.
Well, that's why I say, like, if you free up the money in the expansion draft, with this specific crop of free agents this year, I don't know that the solution is immediately saying, all right, now we've got all this money to play with. Here you go, Gabe Landeskog. Let's give you $8.5 million a year to come in here and be on the wing. Like, I feel like we've kind of gone down that road. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily the right route to go with this team.
It may be, as you said, you have it, you got space, you go a year with the young guys and see what you have.
That may be what you have to do.
But
are they willing to do that?
And during that year, if it's just to see what you have and you're not really competitive, people aren't going to be happy about it.
They are not going to be happy whatsoever. Got a message specifically for you on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Tell Joe it's Bud on my way to ACC Media Days. Plan to talk with Pat Narduzzi tomorrow.
Oh, Bud. Nice. Awesome. Say hi to the Doozer for me.
There you go. ACC Media Day. Says Dabo, is he speaking this week?
No, but I can't wait for Dabo. As a longtime advocate of name, image, likeness, I've always wanted my guys to get paid, and I couldn't be more excited to be in college football making $9 million a year.
By the way, as Michelle pointed out on Twitter, Kirby Smart confirming that Georgia has reached the vaccination threshold as well as 80%. So we now know 2 of the 6 SEC teams, Vanderbilt and Georgia.
Ask every single guy. And if you are a coach whose team has actually pulled this off, you should proudly proclaim it, and then we'll know the 6.
Process of elimination.
And we'll know the 8 who need to get in gear.
That does it for us today here on Robby and Rexrode. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Darren Donica Chase is coming up next. This is ESPN 102.5 The Game.